If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, some pictures or something that's going on in the community, and then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. So let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1, the Covelli Center and Amphitheater survived 2020 on federal funds. The Covelli Center and the Amphitheater survived 2020 with a $10,915 operating surplus. A key talking point in this story is the fact that ever since JAC Management Group took over management responsibilities of the two facilities, they have been able to maintain a profit. The $353,310 and some change received from the federal Paycheck Protection Program literally saved the entertainment venues locally. It saved their operating budgets. JAC and other entertainment venues struggling to stay afloat will now be looking to the Save Our Stage Act to help the struggling entertainment business recover from the woes brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. This story is a good story that's probably still developing. Story number 2, Struthers sees some value in removing a dam. One front page Vindicator article headlined how Struthers is just one of many cities included in a regional effort to revitalize waterways between Mahoning and Trumbull County. The small community plans to remove its dam near South Bridge Street. The project holds a price tag of about $4 million, which will be accounted for from a number of prominent Ohio conservation sources. Now, this will be one of many projects that will be taking place locally in surrounding communities. Big headline. Story number 3. Congressman Tim Ryan has been very busy making moves. Since being re-elected, Tim Ryan has been busy not only handling his duties for the 13th District, but he is now preparing for a run for the Senate after Senator Robert Portman announced that he would not be seeking another term. Candidates have been standing in line because of the attention surrounding the Senate seat, which will turn the tides when it comes to the majority in D.C. Ryan is also co-sponsoring a bill to move government jobs out of D.C. and spread them throughout the country to improve government efficiency and effectiveness. Now, at the moment, about 283,000 federal workers are based in the Washington, D.C. area. Tim Ryan is also joining other Ohio representatives in tooting the horn on the postal truck contract. What they're saying is they're pushing for a federal oversight body to investigate a deal with Oshkosh Corporation that is still worth about $54 million. So they're kind of upset that Ohio did not get this contract, but they're saying that there's something going on inside of this deal, and that's why story number 3 made it in this week. Story number 4, how street culture and violence is seeping into our everyday life. Several violent incidents show that street violence and the culture is seeping into the life of everyday people. After a shooting at the Midlothian nightclub that left one person dead and 2 people wounded, it is very clear that street violence and the street culture is spreading worse than COVID-19, which is, there are some pluses, there are some negatives that come along with the culture. So, and everybody who lives this life, especially in the street, knows this. The story may sound frightening, but Youngstown is not the only place making headlines outside of local news and local reports. Now, national stories about other places are showing significant patterns of crime linked to business within the street realms, stuff that happens in the street. It's a very brutal culture. Now, the fact is that these stories will continue to make headlines because street business is seeping into the lives of everyday people, and many who are caught in the middle of this lifestyle really don't want any part of it. Some of them just want to get out. They want to live a normal life. Now, the only solution to this ongoing saga is infiltration and mass community oversight and community activism and involvement, which is in many crime-riddled neighborhoods have already been taking place and been implemented. This story is still developing because where there is street life, there usually has to be somebody to help these people in the streets get to a better life and see some hope at the end of the tunnel, because these stories keep making headlines inside of the city and city life period. That's why story number 4 made it in this week. Story number 5, the COVID-19 numbers remain elevated, but locals continue to fight on. Even with the vaccine around, the valley is seeing an uptick in cases. Although the state has loosened most of its mandates, cases continue to climb and people are still being hospitalized. Currently, herd immunity may be the state's only option because there are still so many conflicting views when it comes to the virus itself. The current perception of contracting the virus seems to be different depending on who you talk to, and at the moment there is still a lot of people who are not listening to medical professionals. Story number 5 is one of those stories that is really seeping into a lot of news stories, because if the people who feel they have the answers are just not trusted, then this story will continue to stay in the news. Story number 6, ODOT and the Ohio Turnpike have big road construction plans. $42.4 million is the amount set to be invested into major roadways in the Mahoning County. Altogether, ODOT plans to spend $71.4 million into the construction of several major roadways, including Interstate 680 in Youngstown. 12 bridges on Route 711 are also included in the plans. Upgrades of some roads in Trumbull County was mentioned in the local report also. Now, in a separate report, the Ohio Turnpike will be making some upgrades as well. Now, this will be a $205 million program put in place to improve some of these roads and especially on the Turnpike. So this is a big story, and that's why story number 6, because everybody's always crying foul when it comes to Ohio roads, but it's good to see something being done. Story number 6, big headline. Story number 7 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. It's getting hot in here. Utility companies in the valley set to invest millions. Upgrades to just about every utility division seems to be the goal, with millions being invested into power, gas, water, and sewer providers. Their equipment, the wires, all that stuff. This story highlights the area. What the area is doing and how they're making it more convenient for this area by modernizing and improving the utility sector for local residents. This is good news. Now, inside of this very elaborate article are details on how the area plans to improve just about every aspect of the local utility market. This is a good story. Every upgrade will solidify plans to improve the living standards for area residents utilizing these services. So with all these improvements on infrastructure, utility poles, water, sewage, the question is why aren't people more optimistic about the future of this area? That's why story number 7 almost made it to the top this week. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it in this week. It's time for the top story that made it in this week. Don't you feel it? Understanding how COVID-19 has affected local businesses. Warren and Youngstown jumped to the top of the state's unemployment list, with Trumbull County at 7.9% unemployment and Mahoning County at 7.2%. Warren's jobless rate individually holds steady at 9.8%, and Youngstown at number 2 at 8.9%. Now, these numbers show that local businesses have not been able to impact jobless numbers. They've been because evidently many of them are still struggling, and lawsuits are increasing from about every business aspect. People are suing the state, people are suing businesses are suing each other, and nobody seems to understand that the fact that if there is no money, you can't produce money, and you're spending more money with a lawsuit to get more money. So either way, the story number 8 is going to continue to hang on, because the fact remains that businesses are struggling in the midst of COVID-19, and if the state told them to close, then it's going to be very, very hard for them to rebound, even if they cannot even get access to capital. Story number 8, that's why it made it to the top this week. This is a big, big story that's still developing, showing you how businesses are being affected inside of this terrible, terrible wrath of being shut down and having to recover in the midst of COVID-19. Well, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories, so don't go anywhere. You're the Mediator, me, Brian West. I'm right back.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program.